So I need to push the Astra van back in the garage, but every time I have to go and push it back in, the back tyre's flapped. So I've got to take the wheel off and blow it up, put it back on and push it in. It's a pain in the backside, but I've just found out that it's leaking here, the rim, so I'm going to have to push this in and out loads and loads before it's able to drive in and out on its own steam. So I'm just going to whip the tyre off, clean up the bead, and hopefully it seals. So let's get on and do that. Right, so hopefully that stops leaking, so I can roll it in and out. Speaking of which, let's get it in. Alright, so now that we know that the body, the shell, the chassis is pretty good, we're obviously going to keep it and get this back on the road. But in the meantime, I need to find an engine, which isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. They seem to be few and far between. But in the meantime, I want to get this engine out and clean up the engine bay, and then decide if I'm going to replace the engine or sort this one. It just depends on cost, obviously, as with everything. So ideally, usually I take Astra engines, Mark 4s and 5s. I just drop the subframe in the rack and then drop the engine in box, and that way I can sort everything out, check everything, replace any brake pipes, because there's one brake pipe on the Mark 4 and 5 Astras passenger front that actually runs sort of between the subframe and the body, which you can't really get to when the engine and everything's in place. But I'm pretty sure all these brake pipes are good, but this isn't obviously going to be done overnight, so ideally what I want to do is take the engine and box out and leave the subframe and the wheels on so I can push it about. I just don't want to, because it's actually so good, I don't want to be damaging the paintwork pulling these out. But we'll see how it goes. I know it can be done. I don't usually do it that way, but let's have a go, see what we can do. I don't know how detailed I want to do. I'll go with explaining how I'm taking this engine out, but because everything's so corroded with sitting for so long, gotta be a little careful not to strip threads and stuff. So this drive shaft nut is a prime example. I'm not teaching anyone how to suck eggs here, but I'm assuming not everyone knows how to repair cars or take them to bits and watches these videos for entertainment really than to actually do anything. But basically there's a split pin in there that you just straighten up, and then tap it out somehow or manipulate it out. Like so. Because this is quite cruddy, I want to give it a wire brush. Definitely don't want to be stripping these threads, unless the shaft ends up to be worn, of course, and we'll have to replace it anyway. And then a squirt of the good old WD, or a lubricant of your choice. And then we'll get the old impact gun on there. and hopefully that'll come off. Good old 30mm nut. There we go. Well, that came off easier than I thought. This van just keeps on surprising. Not that lucky. So the shaft is potentially seized in the hub there. There's a few ways you can get these off. Some people like to put the nut back on flush and then hit it with a hammer. Or you can put a set of pullers on, take the disc off. I'm going to try my easiest way first with a punch in the centre. Nice. So now we've just got to take out the ball joint at the bottom, push the wishbone down, then we can pull this round, pull the shaft out. Hopefully put a ball joint back in, pull the shafts out, because we don't want to take any of this off yet. We want to keep it a rolling shell for the time being. So I'll crack on with that. Right, so we've got the drive shafts out. And put the ball joints back in. Stuff the gearbox holes with a cloth. Usually when you pop the drive shafts out, the gear oil will start to spill out straight away, but this one didn't. So it's either low on oil or empty. Yeah, but we'll have a look at that afterwards. So next I'm going to get the dreaded exhaust off, and this is always, for me anyway, the worst bit on Vauxhalls, because these nuts, the downpipe nuts, always corrode. And these ones actually look pretty good, but sometimes they look good to start with, and then by the time you put a nut on and take off the first layer of rust, 13 becomes 12, 12 becomes 11, and before you know it, you've got the extractors out, the gas, and then if all else fails, the angle grinder. Hopefully I don't have to go as far as that. So I'll get this exhaust off, hopefully, and then I'll pull off the front and rear engine mounts, the gear linkage, and then I think back to the top. So let's get this off, see how it goes. Right, so after all my moaning about downpipes, that came off easily, which is brilliant. So I pulled off this front engine mount, and the bush in there is buggered. Champs a lot on these things, so we need to get a new mount. Might have one. Taking off the back one, taking off the gear linkage. I think the bush on the pivot is actually worn, it's just popped off. So we'll need to address that as well. I might also have some of this stuff lying about. So the engine's now rocking. That's pretty much everything under here. I just need to take it down, remove the wiring loom, the coolant hoses, probably the diesel filter housing out the way, take off the two mounts, and hopefully pull it out. Right, so I think I've got everything off. Taking out the filter housing. Pretty much every pipe that I can see. Drained all the coolant. The clutch, the hydraulic feed pipe. AC is empty, but the radiator looks really good. It actually looks like a new reconditioned one, so maybe we'll see if we can regas it and get that working in the future. So I also need to lift this out with the engine hoist. I think it'll come because there's plenty of space here to bring the fifth gear of the gearbox to the left and then pull it out. The only thing is, it's a bit of a mission to do on your own, so I think that my brother's coming over tomorrow to get suspension on his S3, so I might leave it till then, pull it out with him, so I'll try not to scratch so much paintwork, and then put the wheels back on and push it out, in theory. But I'm on my way to the pub, because it'd be rude not to, so I'll pick it up in the morning. So I'm just waiting on my brother so we can pull this engine out. I'll set it all up. In fact, that sounds like him now. Cool, cup of tea and then we'll crack on.